The ship came out of faster-than-light travel with a soft hum. Ambassador Park Yuna watched through the observation window as the massive space station grew larger. It was called Varus Prime, the heart of galactic politics. It floated in the darkness like a metal flower with 1,000 petals. Ships of every size and shape moved around it like bees around a hive. Yuna had studied the station for months. She knew its history, its layout, and the names of every species that called it home. But seeing it with her own eyes was different. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It made her feel small. "Impressive," said Kim Dewan, standing beside her. He was her military attaché, a man with gray at his temples and scars on his hands. He had fought in the Mars Uprising 20 years ago, and still walked with a slight limp. "They want us to feel impressed. That's the point." "And it's working," Yuna admitted, behind them. Choi Murray was reviewing economic data on her tablet, her fingers moving fast across the screen. She was young, barely 30, but she understood numbers better than anyone Yuna had ever met. "The station processes more trade in one day than Earth does in a year," Murray said. "If we get good terms here, our economy could double in a decade." The fourth member of their team said nothing. Lee Tae-yoon stood in the corner, watching everything with quiet eyes. He was intelligence, which meant his job was to see what others missed. Yuna trusted him completely, even though he rarely smiled. Their ship, the Baekdu, was small compared to the vessels around it. The council had sent them specifications for the meeting. One of those specifications was that humanity should arrive in a diplomatic transport, not a warship. Yuna had agreed. It seemed reasonable at the time. Now looking at the armed cruisers patrolling the station, she wondered if it had been a mistake. The docking process took an hour. Alien officials scanned their ship, checked their documents, and asked them the same questions in different ways. Yuna answered patiently. She had been a diplomat for 15 years, and patience was her greatest skill. When they finally stepped onto the station, a delegation was waiting for them. The leader was a Velith, tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. His name was High Speaker Morath, and he was the voice of the Galactic Council. "Ambassador Park," Morath said, and his voice was smooth like water over stones. "Welcome to Varus Prime. Humanity's presence here is a historic moment." Yuna bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. "Thank you, High Speaker. We are honored to be here," Morath smiled, but the smile did not reach his eyes. "Come, the council is eager to begin." They walked through corridors filled with aliens of every shape and color. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had no features Yuna could recognize at all. They all stopped to stare at the humans. Yuna felt like an animal in a zoo. "Curious about us," Murray whispered. "They're measuring us." Dewan corrected. The council chamber was a vast circular room with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Representatives from 12 species sat in their designated areas, watching as the humans entered. The room fell silent. Morath took his place at the highest seat and gestured for Yuna to stand on the central platform. She did so, her team behind her. "We are gathered here," Morath announced, "to discuss the integration of humanity into the galactic community. As is tradition, we will present the standard terms for new species." A holographic document appeared in front of Yuna. She read it quickly, and her heart sank. The terms were not terms. They were demands. Humanity would surrender control of 3 colony worlds to council oversight. Their fleet would be limited to defensive vessels only, with no new warship construction permitted. They would pay tribute in rare minerals, 20% of their annual production, in exchange for protection and guidance. Trade would be restricted to approved partners only. With the council taking a percentage of all transactions in return, humanity would receive the privilege of existing within council space. Yuna read the document twice to make sure she understood. Then she looked up at Morath. "High Speaker," she said carefully, "these terms seem unbalanced." Morath tilted his head. "Unbalanced? These are the same terms offered to every new species. They are fair and traditional. They require us to give up sovereignty over our own colonies." "Temporary oversight," Morath corrected. "For your own protection. Young species often make mistakes. The Council's guidance prevents those mistakes. From the Draven section, an elderly alien with wrinkled gray skin spoke up. His name was Council Elder Vethus, and his voice was rough like gravel. Every species in this room accepted similar terms when they first joined. It is the natural order. The young learn from the old. Yuna looked around the chamber. Some representatives nodded in agreement. Others watched with expressions she could not read. And if we wish to negotiate different terms? She asked. Morith's smile faded slightly. Negotiate? Ambassador, you misunderstand. These terms are not a starting point for discussion. They are the final offer. You may accept them or reject them, but you cannot change them. The words hung in the air. Yuna felt Doan tense beside her. I see, Yuna said quietly. May we have time to review the documents fully before giving our answer? Morith considered this. 6 hours. We will reconvene then, and you will give your decision. Yuna bowed again. Thank you, High Speaker. They were escorted back to a waiting room, a comfortable space with soft chairs and a view of the stars. The moment the door closed behind them, Doan spoke. They're not negotiating. They're dictating. I noticed, Yuna said. Myray was already analyzing the economic impact on her tablet. If we accept these terms, we lose 30% of our industrial capacity within 5 years. The tribute alone would cripple our expansion efforts. And the military restrictions would leave us defenseless, Doan added. No new warships means we can't protect our borders. We'd be dependent on Council forces for security. Yuna nodded slowly. She had expected difficult negotiations. She had not expected this. Taeyeon, she said, what do you see? The intelligence officer had been silent since they arrived. Now he looked at her with those quiet eyes. I see a trap, he said, and I intend to find out how deep it goes. He pulled a small device from his pocket and began working. Whatever he was doing, Yuna knew better than to ask. Some things were better left unknown, till they needed to be known. She turned back to the window and stared at the stars. 6 hours. They had 6 hours to decide the fate of humanity. She hoped it would be enough. Lee. Taeyeon worked in silence while the others waited. His fingers moved across the small device, and lines of code scrolled across its screen. The station's communication network was complex, but Taeyeon had spent his career breaking into complex systems. After 2 hours, he found what he was looking for. Ambassador, he said, you need to see this. Yuna walked over and looked at the screen. It showed a transcript of a private conversation between council members, recorded just before the humans arrived. High Speaker Morith was speaking. The humans are more dangerous than we anticipated. Their technological growth is abnormal. 40 years of space travel, and they already have weapons that rival our own. Council Elder Vethus responded. Then we must control them now. While they are still weak enough to control, another voice. One Yuna did not recognize. And if they refuse our terms, Morith, they will not refuse. No species has ever refused. But if they do, we have contingencies. Their delegation ship is surrounded. Their home system is undefended. A show of force will remind them of their place. Yuna read the transcript 3 times. Each time she felt colder. They planned this from the beginning, she said. There's more, Taeyeon replied. He scrolled to another section of the transcript. This is from 6 months ago. Conversation was between Morith and a Velith military commander. The primates are aggressive by nature. Their history is filled with war. They will eventually become a threat to galactic stability. Better to chain them now than fight them later. The commander and the tribute, the colonies, Morith, resources. The humans have access to rare minerals we need. Their labor will feed our economy. Their soldiers will fight our wars. They will be useful as long as they remain obedient. Yuna stepped back from the screen. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. They don't want partners. They want slaves. Doan had been listening with a dark expression. I've seen this before, he said. On Earth, centuries ago, empires always dress up exploitation as protection. They offer guidance while they take everything. The Council has been doing this for 3,000 years, Taeyeon said. Every young species that joined was stripped of their resources and military power. Some never recovered. The ones that tried to resist were destroyed. Iray looked up from her tablet. That explains the economic data. The younger species in the council are poor. Their worlds are depleted. They produce goods for the older species and receive almost nothing in return. Pyramid Una said, "The council is a pyramid. Those at the top grow rich, while those at the bottom carry the weight. And they want humanity at the very bottom." Dewan finished. Silence filled the room. Outside the window, council patrol ships moved in slow circles around the station. Una watched them and thought about the Bike Du, their small diplomatic transport sitting helplessly in the docking bay. "Tyen," she said, "can you access the station's security network?" "Already done," he replied. "They have 50 armed personnel surrounding our ship. Their weapon systems are targeting us. If we try to leave without permission, they will destroy us." "Then we're prisoners," Myray said, her voice tight with fear. "Not yet," Una replied. "Prisoners don't get to sit in waiting rooms. They still need us to sign their treaty. That gives us time." Dewan was pacing now, his military training showing. "We need to contact Earth. Warn them about what's happening." Taeon shook his head. "All our communications are being monitored. Anything we send will be intercepted and blocked." "Then we're alone," Myray whispered. Una closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She had trained for difficult situations. She had negotiated peace treaties and trade deals and hostage releases. But nothing had prepared her for this. The fate of her entire species rested on what she did in the next 4 hours. When she opened her eyes, her mind was clear. "We're not alone," she said. "We came prepared."
Ow.
Dewan looked at her. "What do you mean?" Una smiled slightly. "Did you really think we would send our first delegation to an unknown alien station without a backup plan? Admiral Baejunwell has a fleet hidden in the asteroid belt of a nearby system. 37 warships, including 3 battlecruisers. They've been there for 2 weeks, waiting." The room went silent. Even Taeon looked surprised. "Why wasn't I informed?" Dewan asked. "Because this room might be monitored. Because the council might have spies. Because some secrets are safer when fewer people know them." Una looked at each of her team members in turn. The Earth government expected the council might try something like this. Our history taught us to be suspicious of those who offer protection in exchange for freedom. Murray's eyes widened. So when we arrived with just a diplomatic transport, we looked weak, vulnerable. Exactly what the council expected. Una walked to the window and looked out at the stars. But the Bidu isn't just a transport. It carries electronic warfare systems that can blind an entire station. When I give the signal, the Admiral's fleet will jump into this system. The Council's ships won't be able to target anything. Dewan laughed, a short, surprised sound. "You tricked them. I prepared for the worst," Una corrected. "I hoped for the best." The best didn't happen. The door chimed, and everyone tensed. A council attendant entered, a small creature with 4 arms and large compound eyes. "Ambassador Park," it said in a high-pitched voice. "The council is ready to reconvene. High Speaker Morith asks for your decision." Una straightened her uniform and looked at her team. "Remember," she said quietly, "whatever happens in that chamber, stay calm. Follow my lead. And when I say the word principle, be ready to move." They nodded. The walk back to the council chamber felt longer than before. The aliens in the corridors seemed to watch them more carefully now, as if they could sense something was about to change. When they entered the chamber, all 12 species were present. Morith sat in his high seat, looking down at them with patient confidence. "Ambassador Park," he said, "have you reviewed our terms?" Una stepped onto the central platform. Her heart was beating fast, but her voice was calm. "We have reviewed them, High Speaker." "And your decision?" Una looked around the chamber, saw arrogance in some faces, curiosity in others, and something that might have been fear in a few. These species had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had forgotten what it felt like to be challenged. She was about to remind them. "Before I give my decision," she said, "I have a counter-proposal. Humanity requests equal partnership with the Council. Fair trade, mutual defense, shared technology. We will not surrender our colonies. We will not limit our fleet. We will not pay tribute. Morith stared at her. For a moment he seemed too shocked to speak. Then he laughed. It was a cold, dismissive sound that echoed through the chamber. Other council members joined him, their laughter mixing into a wave of mockery. Equal partnership, Morith repeated. You are children among elders, insects among giants. Your species has been in space for 40 years. You've ruled these stars for millennia. Council Elder Vethus leaned forward. Accept our terms, Ambassador. Refuse, and you will find yourselves alone in a very dangerous galaxy. No trade partners, no allies. It's only enemies who remember defiance. Yuna waited for the laughter to fade. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear. Then we have nothing more to discuss. The chamber fell silent. I withdraw humanity's delegation from these negotiations, Yuna continued. We will not sign your treaty, will not accept your terms. This relationship is fundamentally incompatible with our principles. The word hung in the air. Behind her, Dewan pressed a button on his communicator, and everything changed. High Speaker Marath rose from his seat, his pale blue face turning darker with anger. In 3,000 years of council history, no species had ever walked away from the integration ceremony. Treaties had been modified, terms had been adjusted, but no one had simply refused. You cannot leave, Morith said, his voice sharp like broken glass. Your ship is surrounded. Our security forces have orders to prevent any unauthorized departure. Duna stood perfectly still on the central platform. Her team gathered behind her, their faces calm despite the tension in the air. I understand, High Speaker, she replied, but I suggest you check your sensors again. Morith gestured to a nearby attendant who hurried to a control panel. The attendants for hands moved quickly and then froze. Its compoed eyes widened. High Speaker, the attendant said, its voice trembling. I cannot access the targeting systems. The sensor network it's not responding. Across the chamber, other species began checking their own systems. Alarms sounded from different sections. Screens flickered and went dark. What is this? Morith demanded. Yuna allowed herself a small smile. The BTU is not just a diplomatic transport. It carries electronic warfare technology that your intelligence apparently failed to detect. Right now, every targeting system on this station is blind. Your weapons cannot lock on to anything. Council Elder Vethus stood up, his gray face twisted with rage. This is an act of war. No, Yuna said calmly. This is self-defense. You surrounded our ship with armed forces before we even began negotiating. You planned to hold us hostage if we refused your terms. We simply prepared for that possibility. Before anyone could respond, a new alarm echoed through the chamber. This one was different, louder, more urgent. A holographic display activated in the center of the room, showing the space around the station. 37 human warships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Their weapons already powered and ready. At the center of the formation was the battlecruiser Dokdo, and its commander's voice filled the chamber. This is Admiral Bei Junwoo, of the United Earth Navy, the voice said, calm and professional. Our delegation will be departing now. Any attempt to interfere will be considered an act of war against humanity. We do not wish for conflict, but we are prepared for it.
Alice.
Silence fell over the council chamber. At the display, watching the human fleet take position around their station, these were not the primitive vessels they had expected. These were modern warships, heavily armed and ready for battle. Morith's face had gone from dark blue to almost white. He looked at the fleet, then at Yuna, then back at the fleet. You planned this, he said. From the beginning. We hoped it wouldn't be necessary, Yuna replied. We came here in good faith, looking for partnership. Yuna offered slavery. Now we are leaving, and you will not stop us. If you leave now, Vethus growled, you will have no allies in this galaxy. Every species here will remember this insult. Yuna nodded slowly. We understand, and we accept that consequence. Let's go to her team. Let's go. They walked toward the exit, their footsteps echoing in the silent chamber. Every alien I watched them, but no one moved to stop them. The human fleet outside made sure of that. As Yuna reached the door, a voice called out, It was a cassowary representative, a species with soft fur and gentle features. Unlike the others, the cassowary had not laughed at her proposal. "Ambassador Park," the cassowary said, "for what it's worth, I am sorry. Not all of us agree with how this was handled." Una paused and looked back. "I believe you," she said, "and I hope one day we can meet again under better circumstances." Then she walked out and the door closed behind her. The walk back to the BIDU felt different now. The aliens in the corridors moved out of their way, pressing against the walls as the humans passed. Some looked at them with fear. Others looked at them with something else, something that might have been respect or hope or envy. When they reached the docking bay, the Council's security forces were still there, but they had lowered their weapons. Their commander, a large reptilian creature with scales like armor, stepped forward. "Ambassador," the commander said, "we have been ordered to let you pass." "Thank you," Una replied. "Tell your superiors that humanity holds no hatred for the soldiers who follow orders. Our conflict is with those who give them." The commander nodded slightly, then stepped aside. They boarded the BIDU, and Dewan immediately went to the pilot station. Within minutes, the ship was undocked and moving toward the human fleet. As they left the station behind, Murray let out a long breath. "I thought we were going to die in there." "The thought crossed my mind," Taeyeon admitted. Dewan laughed. Admiral Junwoo's timing was perfect. Another 10 minutes and they might have tried something stupid. Una sat in the command chair and watched the station grow smaller on the view screen. She felt tired. More tired than she had ever felt in her life. They had escaped, but this was only the beginning. "What happens now?" Murray asked.
"Now we go home," Una replied.
"And we prepare for war?" Una shook her head. "For silence. We don't attack them. We don't trade with them. We simply ... disappear. We build our strength, expand our territory, and let them wonder what we're doing." Taeyeon nodded. "They'll expect us to come crawling back once we realize how isolated we are. They'll be waiting a long time," Dewan said. The BIDU joined the fleet formation. And together, the human ships turned away from Varus Prime. Admiral Junwoo's voice came through the communication system. "Ambassador Park, welcome aboard. I'm glad the backup plan worked." "So am I, Admiral," Una replied. "Take us home." The fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel, and the stars stretched into lines of light. Behind them, the Galactic Council station sat in darkness, its leaders still trying to understand what had just happened. For 3,000 years, the Council had controlled the galaxy through fear and manipulation. They had crushed rebellions, absorbed empires, and broken the spirit of countless species. They believed they understood power, but they had never met humans before. And humans, as they were about to learn, did not break easily in the council chamber. High Speaker Morith stood alone at the window, watching the human fleet disappear. His hands were clasped behind his back, and his expression was unreadable. "This is not over," he said to himself. "They will learn their place. All species do, eventually. But deep in his heart, in a place he would never admit to anyone, he felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear the universe had just changed. And he was not sure if the council was ready for what came next. 6 weeks passed after the humans walked away, and the Galactic Council waited. High Speaker Morath called emergency meetings every few days. But there was nothing new to discuss. Human communication channels had gone dark. Human trade ships had stopped arriving at council ports. The border worlds reported that human military patrols had doubled, then tripled, but no messages came. No requests for negotiation. No pleas for mercy. Only silence. "They will return," Morith told the council during their 10th emergency session. "Their economy cannot survive without galactic trade. They have no allies, no support. Within 2 months, they will be begging us to reconsider." Council Elder Vethis nodded in agreement. "Let them suffer. Let them understand the cost of defiance. When they return, we will make the terms even harsher." The council members murmured their approval. This was the natural order of things. Young species challenged, failed, and submitted. It had always been this way. But the weeks turned into months, and the humans did not return. The first reports came from the Velith Trade Ministry. Quantum computing components, which humanity had been supplying to 14 species, were no longer arriving. Factories that depended on these components began to slow down. Production schedules were delayed. Prices began to rise. Find alternative suppliers, Morith ordered. The Trade Ministry searched, but there were no alternatives. The humans had developed their quantum technology independently, using methods no other species understood. The components could not be replicated. Then came the medical reports. Human. Pharmaceutical companies had been quietly treating diseases that council medicine considered incurable. A rare neural disorder that affected the Draven. A genetic condition that killed Cassari children before they reached adulthood. A wasting sickness that had plagued the Velith for generations. Human treatments worked. Council treatments did not. Without access to human medicine, thousands of patients across the galaxy faced death sentences. They're using medicine as a weapon, Vethus growled. But that wasn't entirely true. The humans weren't threatening anyone. They weren't demanding anything. They had simply stopped sharing. The entertainment networks reported next. Human media films, music, games, stories had become the most consumed content across 40 worlds. Species who had never met a human had fallen in love with their art. Now the streams had ended, and audiences across the galaxy complained. This seemed trivial compared to medicine and technology. But it wasn't. Culture created connections. Entertainment built sympathy. Billions of aliens had spent years watching human heroes fight for justice. Human lovers find happiness. Human explorers discover wonders. They had learned to see humans as people, not primitives. When those billions learned that the Council had tried to enslave humanity, they were not happy. This is propaganda, Moreth insisted. The humans are manipulating public opinion. But the Council's own media campaigns fell flat. How could they explain that the aggressive primates they had warned about were the same people who made those beautiful films? How could they justify taking tribute from a species that had cured diseases the Council could not? The Cassari were the first to break. Their representatives stood in the Council chamber and announced that they were withdrawing from the integration treaty with humanity. They would maintain their trading relationship with Earth regardless of Council orders. You cannot do this, Moreth said, his voice trembling with anger. The Council must present a united front. The Council tried to enslave a species that has been healing our children, the Cassari representative replied. We will not be part of that. They walked out of the chamber just as the humans had done months before. 2 weeks later, the Fenari followed. Then the Aluxi. Then 3 more species who had joined the Council less than a century ago. They remembered what it felt like to sign unfair treaties. They remembered being at the bottom of the pyramid. Now, they saw a different path. Marth called an emergency meeting of the original 12 founding species. The chamber that had once held representatives from across the galaxy now felt half empty. We are losing control, admitted Speaker Novin of the Thresi. The younger species see humanity as a symbol of resistance. Every day we fail to bring them back, our authority weakens. Then we bring them back by force, Vethus suggested. We have the largest fleet in the galaxy. We attack their colonies, destroy their shipyards, and remind them who rules here, and risk open war, Novin replied. Our intelligence suggests the human fleet has grown significantly since their departure. They have been building ships at a rate we did not believe possible. It's impossible, Morath said. They lack the resources, the infrastructure. They lack nothing, Novin interrupted. They have rare minerals from their asteroid mining operations. They have automated factories that work without rest. They have a population united by the insult we delivered to them. While we argued, they prepared. Silence fell over the chamber. Morath walked to the window and stared out at the stars. For the first time in his long career, he felt uncertain. The Council had ruled through a careful balance of power. Military strength combined with economic control combined with political manipulation. That balance had worked for 3,000 years, but the humans had found the cracks in the system. They had refused to play the game, and in doing so, they had revealed the game itself. What do you suggest? Morath asked, his voice quiet. Novin hesitated. We negotiate. For real this time. We offer them what they originally asked for: equal partnership. Vethus slammed his fist on his seat. We do not bow to children. Then we watch our empire crumble, Novin replied. The choice is ours. The debate lasted for hours. Voices rose and fell. Ancient rivalries surfaced. Some wanted war. Some wanted peace. Some wanted to pretend the problem didn't exist. In the end, Morath made the decision. We will send an envoy, he said. Not to demand. Not to threaten. To request a meeting. We will see if the humans are willing to talk. If they refuse, Vethus asked. Morath did not answer. He already knew what refusal would mean: the beginning of the end, for the Galactic Council as they knew it. But he could not admit that to the others. Not yet. The message was sent to Earth through neutral channels. It was polite, respectful, and carefully worded. The Council requested the honor of meeting with humanity's leadership to discuss matters of mutual interest. For 3 days, there was no response. Then, on the 4th day, a simple message arrived. You will receive your envoy at Luna Station. One ship, unarmed. Ambassador Park Yuna will meet with your representative. Morath read the message 10 times. The humans had agreed to talk, but on their terms, in their space, with their conditions. He should have felt relieved. Instead, he felt like he was walking into a trap, but there was no choice. The council needed this meeting. Prepare an envoy ship, he ordered. Someone trustworthy. Someone who can be ... humble. Finding someone humble in the Galactic Council was harder than he expected. But eventually they chose Adjunct Cyril of the Velith Young, intelligent, and not yet corrupted by centuries of arrogance. Cyril was briefed on everything: the history of the negotiations, the walkout, the economic damage, the political fractures. Your mission is simple, Morath told her. Find out what the humans want. Find out what'd bring them back, and report everything you see. Yes, High Speaker, Cyril replied. As her ship departed for human space, Morath watched from his window once again. Be careful, he whispered to no one. They are not what we thought they were. He was right about that, but he had no idea how right he was. Adjunct Cyril had studied everything the Council knew about humanity before her journey. She had memorized their history, their culture, their technology levels. She thought she understood what she would find. She was wrong. Her small diplomatic vessel dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system, and she immediately saw things that made no sense. Massive orbital platforms surrounded every planet and moon. Ships moved in organized patterns: military patrols, cargo transports, construction vessels. The space around Earth was more developed than many core worlds of the Council. This is impossible, she whispered to herself. They've only been isolated for 6 months. But the evidence was in front of her eyes. As her ship approached Luna Station, the scale became even more impressive. The station itself was enormous, larger than anything she had expected. Warships surrounded it in defensive formations, not the few dozen the Council had estimated, but hundreds. Some were as large as Council battlecruisers. Others were designs she had never seen before. A human voice came through her communication system. Velith vessel, welcome to Luna Station. Please follow the escort to Docking Bay 7. Ambassador Park is waiting for you. Cyril followed the escort fighters, her hands gripping her seat as she passed between rows of warships. Each one seemed to watch her with hungry eyes. When she finally stepped onto the station, a human officer was waiting to guide her. The corridors were clean and efficient, filled with personnel who moved with purpose. She saw humans of all ages and appearances, some in military uniforms, others in civilian clothes. They glanced at her with curiosity but not hostility. The officer led her to a conference room with a view of Earth below. The blue and green planet filled the window, more beautiful than any world Cyril had ever seen. Ambassador Park Yuna was already there, standing by the window. She looked older than in the Council's files, more tired, but also stronger. 6 months of isolation had hardened her. Adjunct Cyril, Yuna said, turning to face her. Thank you for coming, Sorel bowed in the Velith fashion. Ambassador Park, I bring greetings from the Galactic Council. Please sit. Yuna gestured to a chair. Would you like refreshments? We have tea if you can drink it. The offer surprised Sorel. She had expected coldness, anger, hostility. Instead, she found politeness. Tea would be welcome, she said. They sat across from each other, cups of strange-smelling liquid between them. Cyril noticed that Yuna did not drink from her cup either. They were both being cautious. Your station is impressive, Cyril said carefully. We did not expect such development. Yuna smiled slightly. We are fast learners. When we realized the galaxy was not as friendly as we hoped, we adapted. The Council regrets how the integration ceremony was handled, Sorel said. High Speaker Morith has authorized me to express our desire for a new beginning. A new beginning, Yuna repeated. What exactly does that mean? Sorel took a deep breath. We are prepared to offer equal partnership, fair trade terms, mutual defense agreements. The original proposal you made before you left. The words hung in the air. Cyril watched Yuna's face for a reaction, but the human ambassador's expression was unreadable. 6 months ago, your council laughed at that proposal, Yuna said finally. They called us children, insects. They planned to take our colonies, our resources, and our freedom. Now you offer equality? Circumstances have changed, Sorel admitted. Yes, they have. Yuna stood and walked to the window. Do you know what we did during these 6 months, Adjunct? We built, we expanded. We made alliances with species your council had discarded and forgotten. We created trade networks that don't require your permission. Sorel's heart sank. You're saying our offer is not enough? I'm saying your offer is too late, Yuna turned to face her. We are no longer asking to join the Galactic Council. We are building something new. She pressed a button on the table, and a holographic display activated. It showed a map of the galaxy, with certain regions highlighted in blue. 16 species have already signed agreements with us, Yuna explained. Some are former council members. Others never joined at all. Together, we represent a significant portion of galactic trade and military power. We call ourselves the Free Worlds Alliance. Sorel stared at the map. The highlighted regions included some of the most resource-rich territories in the galaxy. The Council had not seen this coming. What do you want? Sorel asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Yuna sat back down and looked directly into Sorel's eyes. We want change? Real change. The Council must abolish the tribute system for all species. Younger civilizations must be allowed to develop freely, without exploitation. Trade must be conducted on fair terms, without the Council taking a percentage. Any species that wishes to leave the Council must be allowed to do so without punishment. The Council will never agree to this, Sorel said. It would destroy their entire system. Then they will negotiate with the Free Worlds Alliance instead of us, Yuna replied. And I suspect those terms will be less generous. She slid a datapad across the table. This contains messages from the 16 species I mentioned. They are prepared to formally announce our alliance within 1 week. When that happens, the galaxy will have a choice between 2 powers, one built on exploitation and one built on cooperation. Sorel read the messages. Each one confirmed what Yuna had said. The Cassari, the Fenari, the Aluxi species who had suffered under Council rule for centuries. They were ready to stand with humanity. Why? Cyril asked finally. You could have conquered us. You could have done to us what we tried to do to you. Why offer any terms at all? Yuna was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than before. Because we have seen what empires built on fear become. We have lived through that history ourselves. Conquest feels powerful, but it plants seeds of hatred that grow for generations. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We want to live in it peacefully as equals. She paused. We walked away from your council because we refused to be slaves. We came back because we wanted to return as partners, not as masters. That is who we are. That is who we choose to be. Sorel sat in silence, processing everything she had heard. The mission she had been given, find out what the humans want, suddenly felt much smaller than what was happening here. I will take your terms to the High Speaker, she said finally. I cannot promise he will accept them. I know, Una replied. But I hope he understands that this is his best option. The galaxy is changing, Adjunct. The question is whether the Council wants to change with it or be left behind. Sorel stood and bowed again. Thank you for receiving me, Ambassador. Whatever happens, I will remember this conversation. Una stood as well. Safe travels, Adjuncts Cyril. And one more thing. Yes. Tell your people that humans do not forget insults easily, but we also do not forget kindness. The choices you make now will determine how we remember you for centuries to come. Cyril nodded and left the room. As she walked back to her ship, she looked out at the human fleet one more time. These were not the primitive primates the Council had described. These were survivors, builders, dreamers. They had been underestimated, and they had used that underestimation to become stronger than anyone imagined. When her ship departed, Luna Station, Sorel already knew what she would tell the High Speaker. She would tell him the truth that humanity had outplayed them, that the old ways were ending, and that the Council had a choice between adaptation and destruction. She did not know if Morith would listen. He was old and proud, set in the traditions of 3,000 years. But she hoped, because in her heart, she had begun to believe that maybe the humans were right. Maybe the galaxy could be better than it was. Maybe it was time for something new. And as her ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, leaving human space behind, she looked at the stars with different eyes. For the first time in her life, she felt hope.